Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. My name is Kevin, K-E-V-I-N, all caps. YouTube handle at Kevin247, by the way. And if you're looking for me on Patreon, it's patreon.com/Kevin247, which we need to talk about that in just a moment. However, there is a more important matter that we need to discuss, and that is the warning signs that are being shared and promoted and pushed and just basically being screamed and yelled from the mountaintops. Folks, this is not a time to run for the hills, okay? This is a time to prepare diligently, effectively, intelligently. Why? How? Financially. The Fed has made their warnings, folks. If you are ending 2022 off with zero assets, zero savings, zero cash flow, zero businesses, zero prospects on the horizon that are going to increase your income, you, my friends, are doomed, or at least potentially doomed. Let's put it at that, potentially doomed, dancing on the edge, walking that tightrope without a net, folks. And they're warning us. They're warning everybody every single day. I just don't think a lot of people are paying attention to the warning signs, and they're ultimately going to face a rude awakening when they get hit next year with, when that hammer comes down with what they're working on, what they're planning, folks. It is going to be a disaster. It's going to be an all-out brawl, catastrophe, folks. It's gonna look like WrestleMania, like Royal Rumble. Everybody just out there throwing bows in the street. Why? Job loss, layoffs, higher prices, inflation, higher interest rates, rent increases, higher gas prices, higher diesel prices. You name it, folks. They're out for blood. They're coming for you, and they're coming for your money more so than anything else. And if you are not already positioned now and don't have assets, that doesn't necessarily mean that we want to use these assets to sell off and pawn and just, you know, liquidate, to rob Peter to pay Paul just to save the day, only to a week later be back in the same situation. No, if you don't have assets, that means you're not thinking and working towards building wealth. Okay, that is what I mean by assets. Now, more importantly, we want to use these assets to produce cash flow. Now, I told you guys I would talk to you about the Patreon. If you guys are interested and want to know how you can create assets, acquire assets, develop cash flow producing assets like many others have already done and taken advantage of, then by all means, come on over, join the network. With the best part about it being you don't need money to start. We're looking at an investment of time that can produce a financial return to help folks get on the track to building wealth, increasing their earning potential, increasing their income, increasing their earnings in general. This is how you can begin to survive, folks. It's a 5-step plan, okay? Earn more money. Earn more. Do all you can to earn more money. And it doesn't necessarily have to be from one source. I would prefer it be from multiple sources, but earn more money. Increase your income. Spend less than you make. Spend less. There's no sense in making more just to spend more. Spend less than you make. Have a budget. Track what's coming in. Track what's going out. Eliminate high interest revolving consumer credit card debt. It's dragging a ball and chain, okay? It's dragging a ball and chain. And then you need to save and invest to further produce more wealth, create greater returns on your investments, and develop cash flow producing assets, or have the ability to acquire and create cash flow producing assets so you don't face economic collapse and wipeout that these folks are planning. Okay, now I talked to somebody today, and they have a really good they are literally, their finger is on the pulse of the economy and has seen this live through recessions before. High level I'll just leave it at that. And they've already warned, they've already called it. They said these companies and businesses, much like I've been telling you guys before, they went out and they overextended themselves during and throughout the pandemic and slightly after the post-pandemic recovery by bringing on too much too fast, by building too much too fast, by hiring and growing and expanding too much too fast with too much money. The money printers were turned on, the interest rates were low, government spending was at an all-time high, Paycheck Protection Program, PPP, government SBA loans, all this was pumped in. We're not even going to talk about everything that was pumped out through record losses and bankruptcies and fraud and theft. That's a whole nother story, but that just adds to the collapse. Now, with that being said, these companies are now seeing the retraction of the Fed, of the monetary policy, of spending, of stimulus checks, of interest rates, of employment. And ultimately what that means is they're going to have to make some changes. They're going to have to retool and revamp how they go about doing business. What does that mean? That means that these folks that came in at crazy high, compensation packages and salaries and hourly rates, they're going to get slashed. They're going to get cut. The workforce is going to be cut. Jerome Powell himself said we're looking at, increasing the unemployment rate by at least 1%, folks. It's going to be higher than that, I promise. And they're going to start cutting more. Why? Because they don't need the people, and they no longer want to pay the high price for them. They want to increase the competition amongst candidates and the workforce and regain that leverage as the company, as the employer, as the payee. How do they do that? They cut as much as they can. They lay off as many as they can. They fire, they terminate, they enact hiring freezes. Why? So that people become more desperate and more eager to accept the same role, perhaps maybe even an increased responsibility and workload for less money. Okay? The companies, the businesses, they're going to continuously drive to push higher revenues, higher sales, higher prices, higher profits, higher net income, but they're also going to couple that with lowered expenses, and the best way to do it is to cut the workforce and reduce how much you pay employees. Some may even be lucky enough to have the ability to negotiate maintaining and keeping their job and keeping their employment by ultimately accepting a lower wage. Others may not have that ability and that option and just get fired in a huge wave of layoffs. But even if you had the ability to have the option to choose to take less money, odds are you didn't follow rule number 2, which is spend less than you make, and you can't. So it's literally going to put so many thousands of families, millions of families at risk because they haven't been doing what they should have been doing all along, and they're ignoring the warning signs that are being shared and are ultimately waiting for the hammer to drop. Folks, you don't have to feel bad. If I'm describing you, you don't have to feel bad because it's not just you. This is happening to so many, your neighbors, your coworkers, your friends and your family could all be in the same boat. There's 60-70% of Americans are struggling right now to try to figure out how they're going to buy groceries and pay the bills they have coming up and afford the rent payments and not get evicted and not have their cars repossessed and not file bankruptcy and not lose everything and not, have to, get a divorce because your wife is pissed off and mad because you don't make enough money and now the family can't, live the life that they once had. The quality of life is diminished. And there's so many things going on right now that, folks, if it's you, don't feel bad because you're not the only one, okay? There is hope. You can try to increase your earnings. You can try to increase your income. You can try to limit your spending. You can try to create better budgets. You can try to eliminate debt and wipe out debt while you can. You can try to put yourself and your family on a path of wealth, creating, increasing wealth, building out your portfolios and investments and diversification and acquiring and producing cash flow, producing assets, so that you don't have just one single point of failure, so you're not vulnerable and 100% exposed and at risk of losing your job because you have been a great, stellar employee, high marks, 5 stars across the board, but the company you work for says, sorry, we don't have enough money, we're bankrupt. We're like, you're like, nothing you did was wrong. It's just that we can't continue on anymore. So what are you going to do at that point? A lot of people are actually taking steps and coming over and joining the network and connecting with myself and others within the network to utilize the tools that are available to literally develop ways of producing additional income almost overnight, sometimes overnight in some cases, without even having a huge cash outlay that a lot of people don't have to pull it off. It's literally just using what is available out there and a little bit of time. It may mean that you're gonna not be able to go to the bar after work, or lose a few hours of sleep at night, but guess what? I'm gonna tell you guys from experience, it is well worth it. Beforehand, do what's hard when it's easy. Otherwise, you're going to be looking back and saying, man, I wish I would have did this sooner. We're on the verge of being wiped out. We have no backup plan. We have no savings. We have no safety net. What are we going to do now? And don't think that the government's going to step in and cut some stimulus checks and help some folks out. This is going to be a rude awakening for so many people out there that continuously refuse to listen and accept the simple fact that our economy is changing. There's a huge shift going on in the markets, and there will be some winners, but there will probably be more losers. But because of this, it doesn't mean that you have to be a loser. You can be a winner, but you're going to have to do what needs to be done in order for that to happen. It's not just going to happen on its own. At least for most, maybe you get lucky, but odds are luck is not in the cards. Like, you're going to have to really put forth some effort to really see this happen. And yeah, I know I'm gonna get crap for this video. I'm gonna get backlash, and people are gonna hate on me in the comments and send derogatory messages and all sorts. Look, guys, it don't matter to me. I'm doing this to help you guys. I'm doing this to help motivate and encourage you. And whatever it is that you guys decide to do is perfectly fine. I just would prefer and rather not see folks out there struggling unnecessarily, given the fact that the warning signs are being presented and there is still time to prepare.